Listen to the music, listen to my body. It's telling you something you should know. Yes, I feel it
By popular demand.
She had gotten her own place. She had never been self-sufficient before. It was always my dad. So like I was excited to go home, you know. So in the placements, I did struggle a little bit. It took me about a year for my mom to fully get me back, because you have to really understand I was just very angry. But I eventually got smarter and stopped, you know, falling for that. You know, like I just secluded myself and just pretty much quit talking and not, you know, responding to anything. And my mom was able to get me home, and my mom is, you know, dealing with the housing and stuff like that, low income welfare. So we were in a neighborhood where we had to go to public school system. So I met friends and stuff like that. And I was just beginning to have a normal, you know, childhood, having friends come over, you know, going to go see them, going to the rec center, just being a normal kid. You know, I was at that point, you know, pretty much in my mind an adult. You know, I was, you know, beginning to be more promiscuous. That was kind of when I was getting into boys, the 14, 15 age. So like, you know, I'm hanging with girls that's into boys and stuff too, getting into the hair and all of that. So I couldn't really do too much because I knew my dad was still like lurking, like he was still out there, and I still had a fear of him. And my mom, I remember one time, she did call him on me, because she really couldn't like control me. If she would tell me to do something, I would do the opposite, you know, type of thing. I would go to school and go right out the back door and go to my friend's house, and we'd be sitting all day watching, back then it was video stores, so we watched videos all day long, practicing all the moves. But like that to me was my most memorable days. Like, and I'm still friends with those girls to this day. You know, Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's where I say all my real friends are. That went on for about 6 months of me having like just an active childhood, going to the mall, going to the movies, all that stuff. And we started like noticing my dad started coming around. Like my mom would say he wanted to see us and stuff like that. And I noticed like she would, you know, kids see stuff, you know, we're older. We see him coming by the house. He might, I don't know, he bringing her money or whatever. And we would just start seeing him more and more. So me and my brother, we would have like conversations like we hope that, you know, she's not going to go back to him and stuff, because we wasn't just trying to go back to living like that again. And then it's just like lo and behold, he started like staying the nights, you know, like he come home from school, he's there. And it was just making me like real uncomfortable. Beginning when he was like coming around, he was trying to be all nice and stuff, you know, giving us money, you know, trying to take us places and stuff. But I knew the real him, you know, and I knew it was gonna come out eventually. Like the fighting and stuff with him and my mom was starting to pick back up. You know, you walk through the door from school, you hear them arguing and screaming, and then you hear her hollering, so then you like, oh, he done hit her, you know, and then you already pissed off because we older now. Like, you ain't trying to just be beating up our mom. And so we were just getting to those little breaking points, you know, and it had happened a couple of times, you know, like, I'm not gonna sit here and say within those 6 months it was peaches and cream, because it wasn't. Like, he came in and out, he was nice in the beginning, but it was a couple times where he beat her up, you know, and we just was like, we're not finna go back to this. And then when he came home with this inkling, you know, like, oh, I got a house down in Smyrna, Georgia, and we get ready to move down there and we're gonna start all over. No, we're not. You know, so we went out the window, and my brother went to his old foster mom's house, Miss K, and I went to my best friend's house, Tamisha. And I think Miss K, my brother's foster mom, is who told my dad where we were, or where my brother was or something. And my brother knew where I was, of course, because we kept in contact with each other. So they went and picked up my brother and came and picked up me. And literally, my dad did take us to this place in Georgia. He did. but we weren't there long because me and my brother, we were not dealing with that. And so we're down there in Smyrna, Georgia. He takes us to this house. It was less than a week we were there. And he jumped on my mom. And as he's fighting my mom, him and my brother start fighting. And so I hear him in there saying stuff like, oh, you think you a man? You think you grown enough to fight me? You know, like, and they're going toe to toe. So like I see he's about to get the best of my brother, and I jump on his back and grab him like this. And so like me and my brother jumped him, you know, like we got the best of him. And then we ran. And so we ran all the way up to the street to the Kroger, which was a grocery store, and called the police. So the police came, they took us back down to the house, and the whole time we were just scared, thinking like he was gonna kill our mom or just do something to her. And when we got there, you know, my mom, she's all beat up and stuff, and they were like, you know, you got 30 minutes to get your stuff and go. And she had her own car, that LTD Ford, so we threw our stuff in bags just like this, what we could, and hopped in my mom's car and went back to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now we're homeless. You know, we go to the Salvation Army and we're at the shelter. That was my first experience being at the shelter. And it was pretty scary. Like I definitely wasn't used to that, like being around a bunch of, it was men and women, so like it was just cots like everywhere lined up all on the floor. And my mom made a phone call to my dad's manager. So she called my dad's manager, and she came to the shelter and picked us up. And she went and bought us 3 one-way tickets to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is where my mom is from. And she took us to the bus station, gave my mom, I think, a couple $100. So we had money for food and stuff. And we got on a bus with like 15 of these bags. When I tell you it was embarrassing, and they made us take them on top of the bus because you can't put it down at the bottom because you have to tag luggage. So it wasn't able to be tagged, so we had to put it on the bus. So like, can you imagine, like everybody was cussing us out because we taking up like the whole back with all these damn garbage bags. Oh my God. And like me and my brother, like we just trucked it out. That's why I just love my brother, because he just was with me through everything. Like I didn't give a damn what they was talking about. Like I was looking so forward to coming to Harrisburg, to be so far away from my dad that he could not get to us. When we got here, my aunt picked us up from the bus station, and I was just really happy. You know, I got to meet my mom's side of the family for the first time, and I'm like, wow, like I got all these aunts and uncles and cousins, and you know, her parents were deceased before I was born, so I never got to meet my mom's parents. You know, her mom died when she was like 17, and her dad died when she was like 8 or 9 or 10 or something, so I never got to meet them. But just meeting all of that family, like it was just awesome. Like they celebrated Christmas, Thanksgiving, all the holidays and stuff, so just everybody coming around, making all that food and opening gifts. Those are memories that I'll never forget. You know, my mom's sister, they're the closest in age. My Aunt Jackie, she's like my mom. She's my favorite aunt. She never turned her back on me. She was always there for me. Like she never judged me, because like I never told anybody. Like when we were staying at my Aunt Barbara's house, like everything was just so great. And then like she had a son, her youngest son, that was living there, and like one day he just came upstairs and like he just raped me. Like I'll be like playing it back in my mind. I've been trying to figure out like, why didn't I yell? Like why didn't I say something? And it's just like, I remember how paralyzed I used to get in those moments, and how like I would just turn my head and tears would just go down my eye, but I would never say nothing. And like I heard somebody coming up the steps, but I didn't think nothing of it. And like when he came upstairs and just climbed into bed and did that, like it's just like darkness all over again. And he killed everything that I felt happy about me and my new family. I just always felt like I was a problem, like everybody always made me feel like I was a problem. I didn't want to get us put out. I didn't want to be the reason to make everybody hate me. And so like when I had missed my period and I had went to Planned Parenthood and they had gave me a pregnancy test, I had no choice but to tell my mom. I remember I was sitting with my mom at the bus stop and I just broke down crying. And I told my mom. And she was like, oh my God. Like she was so mad. Because she went immediately to my Aunt Barbara. Like I remember they got into this big fight and she put us right out. Like I knew she was gonna do. Then we went to a shelter. So we're like in another shelter in this strange place. And of course like my aunt's gonna like gossip through the family. And of course, like I said, it ended up being like, oh, Sam done moved up here, she's a whore, she done enticed my son. Like I didn't ask for that. And then like I found out later on after talking to another cousin that he did the same thing to her. So it's just like makes me wonder, how many other relatives that has he done that to. But I say I love my Aunt Jackie because she never turned back on me. Like she always was there for us. She was in a 1-bedroom. She actually did take us in for a little bit before we did, because it takes a process to get to a shelter. You can't just get in there. So like we were there for a couple weeks. And then my mom, once we got to the shelter, she starts meeting, all these people that are like drug addicts and stuff like that. And so she starts hanging out with these people. And it's just like a downward spiral from there. Our first place was in Hall Manor from the shelter. They put us out at 52C Hall Manor. And so we in the hood now. We going from middle class to definitely we in the hood, we in the projects. But you get used to it, you adapt to your surroundings. I started going to John Harris school and again meeting people, stuff like that. And this was like the time of my life where like me and my mom had the most conflict in our relationship, because being in the projects and then the friends and stuff that she was just meeting, it just was more and more junkies. Like every time I turned around, it's just junkies everywhere. And she would always sell our food stamps. Like our rent was only $19, and like we were getting eviction notices for $19. People making fun of me at school because everybody up here, it was like a fashion statement going to high school up here. People had the colorful Timberland boots and stuff, matching clothes, and the fancy finger wave hairdos and ponytails and stuff. And I'm walking around with a jerry curl. You think I ain't getting made fun of? They used to call me Big Country. Once I started meeting friends and kind of like they was doing my hair and all that, getting into my little girly thing, it got better. But it was like a struggle in the beginning. I eventually met a guy. And we started dating in high school, and then I had found out I was pregnant again. And this time I actually kept the baby. I decided to keep the baby. But it was just like hard for me because I'm dealing with like my mom strung out on drugs. I'm still trying to go to school. I'm pregnant, so I'm like in my 11th grade year at this high school, trying to deal with all of these things. I just was like, I got to do better for my daughter, like that was the mindset I had. So I kind of like stuck it out with my mom for that first year because I did have my daughter and was still going through it with my mom, like living in, like I said, we were going through rooming houses. We were at a couple different shelters, living with people. And after I had the baby, my mom got a place. I moved in with her, but it was still the same type of stuff, and I just had determined that I had to take care of myself. We were getting eviction notices, and it's like she'd be missing for weeks at a time. Like me and my brother after school, we get out of school, we come home, there's no food in the house. We gotta walk over to our aunt's house over in Woodrow Homes. And I'm the type of daughter, I used to be up in the middle of the night knocking on doors looking for her because I would be worried about her so much. And she would always disappear on payday. Whenever she would get paid on Friday, she would disappear. And you wouldn't see her again until like next Wednesday or Thursday sometime. But people would use her, and I used to always be arguing with her, and I'm like, if you're gonna get high, like spend $100 from your paycheck and sit home, at least I can watch you and know that you're safe. When I had went to the shelter, my mom is all strung out, and I actually had went through a bout with my mom with children and youth because she was trying to take my daughter from me. I just was really having a hard time dealing with a lot of the stuff that was going on in my life at that time, and especially with my mom. So like it was a time where I said I was going to kill myself, and my mom had me committed for 3 days. So during those 3 days, she was trying to get my daughter. And so like Children You came to the house and was trying to say that I was unstable, like I couldn't take care of my daughter. So like I'm in a shelter, and this is when I meet my godmom, Suella. And like she takes me under her wing, and that's when she starts taking me to church and stuff with her. And like that gave me like a whole different outlook on life. I started using my voice again. She put me on the choir with her. I wish that I could just bounce back to that time, and never leave her side. Because when I decided to leave and go to North Carolina with my mom, it's just like hell started all over again. That was kind of like the most peaceful, tranquility time in my life, the most time that I was able to see stuff clearly. Like, and we used to do so much in the community with the church, and we used to just go places, travel all the time, visit different churches during Easter, and perform. And I used to love to sing. Oh my goodness, gospel is what truly is my passion, gospel music. And she's still in my life to this day. Hey, mommy. When she was going through her little homeless phase, one of my uncles had came into some money, my Uncle Nicky. And so like, he had moved into my mom's project with us for a little bit. And he's a drug addict and all this stuff. And like, he kept trying to come on to me and stuff and like touch me. And he was making me feel like uncomfortable and stuff. And like, after all that stuff that happened with my cousin Brian and all that, like I told my mom up front what he was doing, like how he was talking to me and how he was making me feel uncomfortable, like rubbing me and like touching me and stuff like that, making passes at me. And like she didn't even put him out because she wanted his money more than she cared if he was making me feel uncomfortable or violating me in any way. So like that was another reason why I didn't like my mom at that time. Like it just kind of just was building like a hatred for me, for her, for the stuff that she was doing and the stuff that she was like turning her back on and leaving me just out there to kind of fend for myself. So like our relationship was very strained at that time. And then just all the little stuff with the whole Children of Youth trying to take my daughter, like they was making up straight lies, even my daughter's side of the family, like they was trying to get her too. The dad's side, they had my kids for like a year, making me go through parenting classes and all of this stuff. But you got other forces like my mom, trying to get her. Then you got the other family saying, oh, she cut her hair off with a butcher knife. So So I just held her up like this and hacked her hair off with a butcher knife. And they in the courtroom saying stuff like this. And I had the whole church with me. And I felt like so alone because like nobody stood up for me. Like nobody said not one word in my defense. And I remember sitting at that table just bursting out in tears, crying. Because it's just like they just was embarrassing me, saying all these lies, trying to make me look like a horrible mother. And I'm like, none of this stuff is even true. Like all y'all want my kid for is some type of welfare check or some type of benefits. Like this is my actual kid. Like I care about her. Like I'm grinding out here trying to do for my kid. Like y'all don't even understand what I'm going through. So I took my daughter and went to a shelter, and I was there for probably about 2 months, working, saving my money, going to school at the same time. And I ended up getting my own first place in Hall Manor. So it's kind of like a repetitive cycle. That's usually where they place you when you're going from a shelter. They give you the first available housing. So I had like a 1-year game plan because I was like, I'm not staying out here long. I got a job around the corner at Penn Credit. It was a collection agency. And I ended up taking courses to do my GED. And I took my GED and got my high school diploma. I traded it in for my high school diploma so I could work because I wanted to go to school for nursing. So I'm going to school during the day, then I'm working in the evening. Like I just got this whole 1-year hustle plan. During that time, my mom, she moved to North Carolina. My sister had told her to come down there. I really like appreciated my sister for that, pulling her like out of this environment and taking her down there. And also during this time, my brother's graduating and he's going back to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's just me here. I was really trying to make a 1-year plan to go back to Tennessee because I was really like, it's nothing here for me. My kid's dad was a jerk, but he wasn't trying to be there for our daughter or anything like that. So I was like, it's really nothing for me here. And I did bounce back and forth for a little while because I did go back to Tennessee with my daughter after a year. But then I found out I was pregnant again by my kid's father, same guy. So he like convinced me to come back home. So like I was only in Chattanooga maybe for about, I wouldn't even say 6 months. So like I'm down there with my brother, and this guy that I'm talking to, he's sitting in the living room. My daughter walks past, and again she's like 4 or 5, and he was like, I ain't no child molester or nothing, but she looking right in them jeans. When I tell you I went motherfucking black, when he said it and it registered, I was like, what the fuck did you just say? I got up and went and got a butcher knife and chased that motherfucker out the house. He hopped into his car, pulled off, and so like he braked and I slammed into the back of his car, and that's how I fucked up the front of my brother's car. Even like the judge understood, like, they understood, like, because I explained to them like everything I went through, and like I just blacked out like when he said that. This is somebody I invited around my kids, like I started thinking all type of stuff, I never left nobody with my kids. I wasn't that stupid, but like just I could be in the bathroom or anything. You make a comment like that, now I got to look at you sideways every type of way. And that's when I started back like really talking to my dad again. He still was struggling with drugs as well, but I kind of say my dad was like a functioning drug addict because like he would at least pay his bills. He would stay presentable. Like you couldn't look at my dad and tell he was on drugs. Like my mom, she throwing everything on the table. He wasn't like that. So I would like start going to his shows and stuff. Me and him was like starting to communicate more, and kind of talked and worked through a lot of stuff that I felt towards him. We had a little bit of conversation, but he still like to me wasn't changed. When I moved there initially, I was staying with a friend of his. Her name was Miss Jackson. So like I had my own room there with my daughter, and it was nice, And the reason that didn't work out is because me and my dad had this huge falling out. Again, he was on drugs and I was getting welfare. So they would come in paper checks back then. So like I hadn't received my welfare check for like 6 whole months, and I kept telling them I haven't received it, but they were like they're being cashed. Yeah. They was like, we'll send you the copies, and I ain't know nothing about that stuff back then. I'm 17 years old, so if he's taking them and cashing them, I ain't know nothing about that. So I'm just thinking like, y'all been waiting on these checks for 6 months, and I done got my daughter, I'm struggling and stuff, and I'm like, they talking about they been cashed. So they send me the copies in the mail. I go to him, and I'm like, Dad, like, really? Like, yeah, I have a daughter. Like, you was really cashing my money, like, using it for drugs and stuff? Like, you that strung out, for real? I had to pay my drummer. I'm like, you're a drummer? And I'm like, I don't give a damn about your drummer? And I snapped. Because he used to always do that to us. Even my brother, like, he was going to the college then, but still staying with my dad before he moved on campus. So he was still staying with Miss Jackson. And my dad would like taking his money and stuff. So then I was like, I connected with my childhood friends for a little bit, but I'm not on that mindset anymore. I got my daughter, and again, like I just found out I'm pregnant again. So my kid's dad conned me into coming back up here saying he's gonna do right. So I came back up here to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I immediately had to go back into a shelter because I'm coming to nothing. Like it ain't anybody I can come up here and just move in with. They actually put me back out Hall Manor, and I still, had my same focus. Got right back to the drawing board and started going to school, working, and my mom actually had gotten clean down in North Carolina. She was clean for about a year, and then she was saying for me to bring her grandbaby down there, come down to North Carolina. So I'm just thinking like, this is why I call my like gypsy phase, because I'm just like bouncing back and forth. So I'm thinking like, okay, cool, I already come up here and went through the experience of going through the shelter, getting a place. My kid's dad wasn't acting right. He moved in. Like, I literally probably had put him out in less than 30 days. Found out he had like 2 other kids on the way by 2 other different bitches. So I'm just like, And so my mom was like, just come on down here to North Carolina. So I'm like, okay, this might be a fresh start, go down here. I'm far in my pregnancy with my son. I gave birth to my son here first because I was too far in my pregnancy. So I went ahead and had my son here. And then when my son was a baby and I had my daughter, I moved to North Carolina with my mom. It was like, again, like okay for the first couple of months, but like you start noticing things, like stuff that my sister wasn't able to pay attention to, stuff that I knew were signs of her being on drugs that I knew, that she apparently has met people down here, and it's back to the same old stuff. My sister's in school, she got a whole husband, kid, another one on the way. So it's like she wasn't really paying attention to a lot of stuff. But I was, I could tell when my mom was telling a story, like a lie about some money. Because I just was used to it, And she used to always take my income tax money. It was just always some type of excuse for everything, and I was just used to it. So when I got down there and I started seeing stuff and people coming over to the house that I knew was drug addicts, you could look at them and tell they was drug addicts. I wasn't comfortable. I didn't want that around my daughter. I had another kid, so I just felt like I was just down here for nothing again. I'm stuck in a whole nother situation. I'm like pissed off because I left my stability, like I could have stayed where I was at and kept pushing. But now I'm down here, so it's like I got to start all over. So it was just a lot of conflict between me and my mom. She had put me out down there. I had to go to a shelter down there with my 2 kids. And then I ended up meeting a guy down there. And he drove a cab. So like he was taking me places, where I needed to go and stuff like that. So he was a confidant and a friend, And I had sex with that man twice and ended up getting pregnant. I was so fertile. But he was just obsessed with me because he was in music. So like he wanted to record an album with me like really bad. That was my first experience like going into the studio. So he showed me a lot of things. Like I really like respected him and liked him a lot as far as like that, showing me things. And I love music, so just being able to record. He recorded my first song, actually. But that was just like dope about him. He was a pianist too, so like he already knew about my dad, so like he felt like he was dating a celebrity's daughter or some shit like that. So like he was just mad obsessed with me. But that wasn't gonna work. He was a lot older than me, and it just wasn't a relationship that I wanted. I wasn't gonna keep my daughter, but his mother had asked me to keep her. It was her first grandchild, and she wanted me to keep her, and so I respected her wishes and I kept her. And to make a long story short, they didn't have anything to do with her entire life. And I had actually moved back to Harrisburg because I just wasn't dealing with my mom like that anymore, and so I didn't want to be in North Carolina. It was easier for me to get on my feet here in Harrisburg. I was conversating with my now husband of 15 years. We were talking over the phone at that time, so that's when I kind of first started talking to him. And I ended up going back to Pennsylvania, and I moved in with my now husband.
I know it hurts, cause I've been treated like dirt since all my life. Men been trying to get up under my skirt, contemplating ending my life, not knowing that the answers to my questions lie within me. All I had to do was listen. Pay attention to this knowledge that I'm giving you. Spit this game that he prophesies for me to get to you. This is my testimony. On nights when I was cold and lonely, searching for love, consumed with lust, my trust, abused by those closest to me. My worth is destined by the chosen one above me. My life was written long ago, so don't you judge me. My faith is all that kept me from a life of danger, so I try to hold on and maintain. If you get my life, I pay the price to sacrifice my daily strikes that plague my life on quiet nights. My body fights to stay in light. Though I try to make it right, I always seem to lose my sight. I'm focused on a greater flight. Lord, please help me. Like the worst, abused, abandoned, and cursed. The ones that claim to love you only hang around for the thirst. Wish I could have chosen my first, but I didn't. Now the pain is buried deep inside, and so I laid it down on this verse. I was racing through a war zone, trying to find my sanity. By the grace of God, I was dealing what they handed me. Look what things has landed me. Popals, they abandoned me. If I had lost my son, I swear to God, you see a side of me. Then I died eternally.
I told you your older sister. Has anybody told you to tell me something today? Or not tell me something?
No. And they arrested me, and I'm pregnant. And while I was downtown, I'm in the back of the police car. He whips out his mace and maces me in my face and closes the door and told me to suck on that bitch.